Hello and welcome back to the ECDC Dialogue Conference. I hope you had the time to refresh yourself a little bit. We will now continue with our second dialogue on brain drain in the ESEE region on a policy and industry perspective. I see we already have some next speakers gathered, so I now test the connection to Maria Nieberg. Hello Maria, are you here? Hello, we cannot hear you yet. Maria is a policy officer from the DG Growth European Commission, and it would be great if we could see some ready connection.
Now, can you hear me now?
Yes, now we hear you. Wonderful, wonderful. Welcome to the conference.
Thank you
for having you. We also have two other panelists here, and we are still waiting for Aurela Shtiza. Maybe we can continue. I have heard that she has some technical problems joining, but we can already start with a panel dialogue. So the floor is yours, Marie.
Thank you very much. Yes, so hello and good afternoon, and very welcome to this dialogue through on brain drain, industry and policy. So as mentioned, my name is Maria Nyberg, and I'm a policy officer at the European Commission, and more precisely at the unit responsible for raw materials policy. I'm very happy to be part of this ESEE Dialogue Conference. It's a premiere for me. I have not attended this event previously. Very excited. In this session, we will look into the industry perspective on brain drain and its effects on the raw materials sector. And this relates to skills and competencies. And this was actually also a central theme in the Raw Materials Week of November last year, where we discussed how to keep and develop knowledge and skill for future and present professionals in the raw materials sector. We did this together with the EIT Raw Materials Academy. We have the privilege in the following hour to have very distinguished speakers amongst us. At least I hope we soon have them all amongst us, who will share their respective insights and experiences. They will each give a short presentation of implications of brain drain in their sector or from their perspective, and develop a little bit more some recent initiatives that have been taken from their side, with an outlook also at future developments. And after the ensuing roundtable discussion, you in the audience will be able to intervene. I hope you have the modalities clear for that. We are happy to hear any comments or questions that you in the audience may have. So I would like now to hand over the floor to Dr. Aurela Shtiza, Industrial Minerals from IMA Europe, but I am not sure that we have her on board. The team in Leoben, what is the...
Maria, we have no connection to Aurela so far. We are trying. I think she's experiencing some technical problems. Maybe you can continue with the next speaker so far, and we'll give our best to add her.
Very much. No problem. And actually, the next speaker was Mr. Pontus Westin from the Swedish Geological Survey. He doesn't seem to be online either, or... Or do we have him with us?
Hello. Hi, can you hear me?
Hello, Mr. Westin. Very well. It's great to hear you. Do you have possibility to connect your video as well?
I don't know. I'm as an attendee and not a panelist. I'm not sure.
Perhaps Leoben team, can you help Mr. Westin to so that we could see him, possibly? That would be very nice.
At the moment, it seems not to be possible to add his slides so that he can himself show them, but we have the slides, so we can bring them on, we can show the slides.
Because in the previous session, all the panelists had their video on, really nice. So we don't do it like this in this one, or?
We want to do it, but it seems to be not possible within the system, and we are currently checking why. But in the meantime, as we get it, as we're trying to fix it, we will just share his slides.
Very good. So please, okay, fair enough.
Good.
So before, I would actually like to give a proper introduction to Mr. Pontus Westin, who is state geologist at the Geological Survey of Sweden. And Mr. Westin will be presenting training programs related to mine water and mine waste management in Africa and knowledge retention in organizations to prevent a brain drain. Please, Mr. Westin, Pontus, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I hope everyone can see the presentation. Well, I can see it at least. I am hoping that everyone else can. I'm sorry that you can't see me, but I'm hoping that you can later. So yes, thank you, Maria. As you said, my name is Pontus Westin. I am working as a geologist, but also a training coordinator for our international training programs here at the Geological Survey of Sweden. I'll speak very briefly on our international knowledge exchange between governmental agencies governing the mining industry. And please, if you could change the slide to the next one. Yes, so what we are doing at the survey is that we are having a kind of a broad technical program for mining inspectors at government agencies in certain select African countries. This topic is on mine water and mine waste management. So a rather technical issue. We are working with kind of a long-term knowledge exchange, collaboration with organizations, mostly ministries of mines and environmental protection agencies. And I'll go into more about the certain issues on brain drain shortly. I just want to introduce you a bit to the subject itself and the program. So if you can take the next slide. We are working with everything from large-scale mines to small-scale mines. And coming to Africa, the pictures here that you see are taken from our program that we've been doing. So the top left is from Tanzania, where we were at a large-scale mine looking at water quality issues, where we have people living very, very closely to the mine site. In the top right, we see a mine in Botswana, where there's is a closed mine that's been closed for some time, but it's still leaking a lot of acid rock drainage from the mine, and there's also water issues there. And below is a picture of children working in an artisanal small-scale mine in Nigeria. And these are all very difficult questions that we are dealing with in general. So, for example, these countries, we are importing some metals from these countries today in Europe. We might not be able to take them up in our own countries, so we need to rely on import. And while we cannot perhaps speed up the process of extracting them in our own countries, we are working with capacity building in the countries that we are importing from. So this is one of the things that we are doing. And the program that I'm speaking of is again tailored for government agencies. And it's a long program where the participants, they go in 4 steps over 1 year. They participate in the program in the steps that you see in the picture here. So, and what is included in this is a 10-month period where they work with change projects. So they actually implement the things that they do in the program, they implement in the organization during the time of the program. And that's one of the most important things that we're working to tackle brain drain issues. And if you can take the next slide, I'll just briefly mention the ways we are tackling brain drain. So these are the most important points in my mind that we are working with brain drain. As you might know, Africa is a continent where it's low development in general in many countries, and to go a training where you increase your attractiveness to other employers, for example, in other regions or countries, will probably create a chance for you to get a better pay, a better job somewhere else. But to tackle this, we try to work with organizations themselves, not really working with individuals with training, rather working with groups and organizations, and doing this for a long time, several years, so that knowledge and learning that we transfer to these organizations tend to stay in the organizations, because it's not reliant on certain individuals can move and be really have a high mobility, but rather work with organizations that have will stay for a long time. The participants we are working with are inspectors, so they are working, as I write here, on the floor. They're not really managers, and the way we think here is that we should encourage a kind of a vertical career rather than a horizontal. So you can encourage that the participants can, rather than move to another job in another country, they could develop their skills and evolve within the organization, going to a manager role themselves, perhaps, or a supervisor or something else. And something else that we've seen is very important for our topic is the bigger picture. So by working in this field and in this position, you have the ability to be a real change agent, to really change how we look at these issues like human rights, environment, national economy, and so on, how we really work with this in our countries. The bigger picture here is very, very important, to not make people move away from their organizations, maybe taking a job in Germany when the problem really lies within your own country, and really to tackle those big issues. So while I know the theme here is industry and policy, this might take on some of those issues, but it's really about a good example of how to tackle brain drain with education and training, especially to government agencies and big organizations and so on. So the next picture, I think, is my thank you for this short speech. I think if you can go on to the next picture. Oh yeah, I had another picture. Sorry, it's difficult when I can't see it myself. Yeah. So one last thing is that the participants themselves can drive change. So training and influencing others within their own organizations, making knowledge stay within the organizations themselves. So one of the last things that we're working with is that the participants can train and influence their own organizations. They come back from a training and they do intra-organizational training to really make knowledge and learning stay in the organization rather than go away if some individuals go away. And these are a few of our participants from different countries. And the next picture, thank you. Yeah, this is the end. So thank you for listening. This is me together with a few mentor students that we had in Zambia. They did present some a change project that they did to implement change in the organization on guidelines for inspection and review of tailing storage facilities. So the work they did in this program, it led to new implementation of new strategies and new guidelines within the organization, meaning that the knowledge that they gained stayed within the organization rather than move away with individuals. Thank you so much.
Mr. Westin, Pontus, can I just ask, for how long have you been running this program?
So I've been working internationally for 4 years now within different programs. This certain program has been running for 2 years now, a bit over 2 years. But it will go on for 3 more years and then, 5 more years and then be probably continued after that. And it's a part of the Swedish development cooperation and yeah, basically development cooperation.
And can I ask, what countries in Africa are you targeting?
So currently we are trying to expand, but as you know, the pandemic is making it a bit difficult. So currently we are situated in Tanzania, Zambia, Kenya, we are in Liberia and Ethiopia, but we are moving to Zimbabwe and to a few other countries soon. Next year.
And the DRC, are they?
Yeah, so we are developing another program for DRC now, but as you know, DRC are speaking French, so it's a French-speaking country, so we need to do it a bit differently. We can't use the same trainers and all of that. So, but it's a parallel program that we are developing right now. But we are talking to them with the embassy, especially.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Please stay on the line.
Thank you.
I will check with Leoben. Is it so that we have Dr. Shtiza with us now?
Hello from Leoben. We have her with us, but we will have to join her like we did with Pontus because there seems to be a connection problem. But we will share her slides and we will hear her. But the video connection is not possible over this attendee function, but we will get the information.
I would like to please pass the floor.
Thank you, Maria. Can you hear me?
Yes. We hear you.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much for actually asking me to join this panel discussion. I'll introduce the perspective from the mineral sector, how we are dealing with the brain drain of the sector and how the sector has put some tools in place in order to actually address this. Can you please move to the next slide? Yes. This is our corporate slide where we introduce the sector. So IMA stands for Industrial Minerals Association in Europe. And we have 10 mini associations which deal with the specific issues dedicated to different minerals. KPC, for example, is for clays and kaolin. euroTalc is taking mainly care of the talc-related issues. UPA is for bentonite. Eurofeld is for Feldspar, and so on. We have about 250 member companies which operate 685 mines and quarries around Europe, and we have about 750 processing plants. The volume of minerals extracted and used in the European market is 180 million tons of raw materials per year, And we have a direct employment of 42,500 direct employees and a turnover of about 14 billion euros annually. Stephanie, can you go to the next slide, please? When we say minerals, sometimes there is a misunderstanding and sometimes there is an understanding that we are talking about metals, but in fact is not at all the same thing. So minerals, they are actually enabling a lot of the what we need in our daily life, such as glass, ceramics, paper, smartphones, cars, and so on. So it's just in this slide you can find which industrial minerals they are used in the specific application. So in paper you'll have about 50% of minerals, in ceramics about 100% of minerals. Is the same for glass. And if in every telephone you'll have different raw materials or different minerals which are used in the different parts of the telephone. Can you go to the next slide, please, Stephanie? So when I was invited to these panel discussions, I went back a bit in time to see a bit how the generation has changed. I'll introduce the generation of baby boomers and Gen X, which was the generations after the Second World War. The millennials, which is the generation where I actually belong to, and the generations
Aurela,
has gone
sorry,
through.
Aurela.
Yeah.
Aurela, we have bad audio from you. I'm sorry.
Yes, Maria, can you hear me?
Yeah, now I hear you, but you were cut off.
Ah. Better now?
Mm.
Is it better?
Yes.
Okay. So, what I was mentioning is the separation of two different generations of employees, notably the post-Second World generation, where the education was nearby home. You got a very steady job and environmental conditions, and you learn on the job site. So you have a degree and then you learn the practice on the job site. And at the time of, especially in the generation X, you have the beginning of the automation in the mineral sector. And what is something very characteristic at that period of time is that most employees, they have one employer in a lifetime. So you are always employed to the same company. While for the millennials, we have a totally different setting. So you have a longer education timeline, and you have a combination and you have the opportunity to study abroad. You have a very dynamic job environment and conditions. You are trained on the job site, so you do your education and then you get additional training on the job site. And what is also obvious is also that for the mineral sector, starting from mid-90s, I would say, there is the beginning of the what is called the digitalization in the mineral sector. And what is something also that is very known and recognized is that most employees, they change multiple jobs as well as sectors much more often compared to the previous generation. The reasons of these changes, and you can see every is a change, it is underlined, is the European Union. You have the Erasmus, which was already mentioned. You have a higher mobility within the country, but also in the neighboring countries or a bit beyond the neighboring countries. You are well connected. You get more and more possibilities. And the job profile is not sufficient to be simply an engineer. So you have to be able to be to have a complex profile in order to meet the job requirements demands. Can you move to the next slide, please, Stephanie? So what I've put together a few slides where I will try to respond to the questions while people join and people stay in the mineral sector. So the sector, as I mentioned, because of the fact that the minerals are used in so many different sectors, you have a dynamic sector. So you are not always, material is not always used on the same application. The mineral sector, they also create connections with universities during the studies. There is the family connection, of course, which is very important. So from mother, father that have been working in the mineral sector, it's also the new generation that they see this long-term relation with the employer. You can also get inspiration to go and work in the same sector. Move to another application. So as I mentioned, the minerals are used in different applications. Just by changing the end application where the minerals are being used, you get the feeling that you are moving to another sector. You get continuous training on site in order to boost the retention and for you to allow you to grow professionally. And sometimes people, they leave for another sector and then they can come back. If you go to the next slide, please, Stephanie. Why people leave sometime is to have a new professional challenge in another sector, family reasons. For example, the wife or the husband have another position somewhere else. Salary, yes, there are other sectors that have a higher salary than in the mineral sector. So these are some of the reasons why people decide to stay and some people decide to go. Can you move to the final slides, Steph? So how the mineral sector is working to develop talent and to retain this talent. There are three pillars which I thought were important and we can touch base during our internal discussion. The first one is the education. So the idea is that the companies, when they see the need that in the future they will need specific profiles, they connect with universities or schools and they create curricula which allow the students to see employment opportunity once they finish the studies. Another idea is also by identifying the talents already at university, you already create this connection and you motivate the talent development for to work at the mineral sector. Training on the job sites, as other sectors they are also doing, there is a continuous training program in order to allow for the employees to feel professionally appreciated, but also they see professional growth. And to also anticipate what will be the upcoming profile needs that we'll have in the sector, in the mineral sector. So you have already to deliver at company level. However, there are continuous changes which are also connected with the other sector where the minerals are being used. If we take the example of circular economy, for example, there are projects or there are needs where we would like to see the need to create linkages where we valorize the flow of materials going from the mineral sector to, for example, the steel sector and or chemical sector. And for this, by anticipating what the future needs will be, we can also anticipate what are the educational curricula we'll need that sector. And I would like just to point out to one European project. It was already mentioned the importance of the European Union to create these linkages, which is known the Skills Alliance for Industrial Symbiosis. And the idea is to accelerate the industrial symbiosis and the energy efficiency, not at sector level, but cross-sectorially. And this project is covering 8 industrial sectors, which account for about 20% of the production in the European Union. So with this, I would like to thank you, and I remain open to if you have any questions.
Thank you very much, Aurela, for the presentation, and great that we could connect you with some efforts in the. Can I just ask this Skills Alliance for Industrial Symbiosis, are you part of that from IMA Europe side, or is it more the respective your members? Or
We are participating as IMA, and we have also one company that is participating, and we have also input of
Right, we had some audio problems with your connection, so in the end you were cut off. But I would like to thank you very much, Dr. Shtiza, for really interesting experiences from the mineral sector, and also with the all the various applications. So really interesting. Dr. Hornstein Tomić is our next speaker. And she represents Pilar Institute of Social Sciences, and her presentation will be about brain drain from a high-skilled migration mobility point of view, with a policy approach and a more horizontal approach. Dr. Hornstein Tomić, you have our attention, please.
Hello, thank you very much, Maria Nyberg. I'm very happy to be here in this part of this panel. And I must say, after a day of discussing brain drain, I feel that we are actually sharing an understanding of the problem, which I think is very good news. Let me, since I'm speaking from Zagreb, look into one company which is actually international renowned for its high-tech hypercars. That's Rimac Automobili. I don't know whether anybody of you has heard about Rimac Automobili, but it's a company with 850 employees outside of Zagreb, which has come out a few days ago with a commercial on YouTube, which you might take a look at if you have some time, in which they introduce a few of their employees, which come from 35 different countries worldwide. And what Rimac is doing with this presentation is actually promoting Croatia as a place for high-skilled workers, a place that has a high quality of life, food standards, which is secure, which is well connected to the coastline, and so on and so forth. And this is fairly interesting because none of the industry in Croatia so far has promoted itself as an international hotspot for high-skilled talents, and Rimac is here really at the vanguard. Another issue that I also think is worthwhile mentioning, Rimac is one of the companies which has very systematically established tight connections with some of the university programs in Croatia, meaning Rimac is engaging in curricular development and also offering work-based learning opportunities for young university students. So also this is a big plus for bridging the gap between education and employment, which is acknowledged as one of the source reasons for high youth unemployment rate and also for brain drain. But now let me just move back once more to what we are actually talking about. We share the concern throughout the European Union, but also beyond, of aging societies, which need to retain and gain a young, well-educated and skilled labor force in order to maintain its productivity, competitiveness, and the viability of welfare systems. The skills short, yeah. Yes.
Would you like to share your slides?
I can do so, yes. However, it's just text, but if I can do so.
Or if the team in Leoben can do it.
Yeah. I hope you can see the slides.
Them on.
Do you actually?
If you put in mode, great. Thanks.
Yeah. Do you see? Okay, fine. So aging societies are nothing specific to our region, but it's something we have to deal with all over Europe. And therefore, the competition for high-skilled talents and young people has not only the focus on skills shortages, but also a demographic dimension, which is relevant. Therefore, we do need to discuss that within the European Union, member states are partners on the one hand, but maybe more competitors at some stage. If we look at the current health crisis, or the crisis of health systems, like in the Czech Republic, which has lost a large amount of its workforce in the health industry to neighboring countries, we know that competition can become really a vital threat to the domestic systems. Demographic decline and shrinking populations are particularly pronounced, though, in the ESEE countries, which are known to be the fastest shrinking societies worldwide. We do need to address that there are widening social cleavages and cultural disparities between the rural and the urban parts within those countries, which mean the more passive regions and the urban centers. Am I still connected? Because I see there is some signal that I might not be heard. So we do have a cohesion pressure within the countries, but also European Union-wide. And we need to consider that the raising populism and EU skepticism is very much linked also to the demographic threat and the shrinking dynamics, which are considered as a vital threat. And I'd like to quote Milan Kundera, who said, "A small nation is one whose very existence may be put in question at any moment. A small nation can disappear, and it knows it." This is very much an issue which is present in local discourses. So the brain drain discourse in Eastern European and Southeastern European regions follows very much a win and lose logic, which I think is partly tainting the problem in a too dark manner. We've seen some of this also in our discussion today. The public discourse focuses on highly skilled migrants as young people who take away education investment. The lack of skilled labor is understood as a threat because industry might move along, might move elsewhere. The spiral of peripheralization or of deepening divides is considered a very tough political challenge and problem. Also the problem of de-skilling and lost potential. And last but not least, it was mentioned also by Minister Dibiak, the agents of change for modernization and internationalization are missing where needed most. This is reflecting very much the discourse we are having, for example, here in Croatia, but I see similar dynamics elsewhere. I think we need to understand the push and pull dynamics and individual agency for driving high-skilled migration. We also need to enhance internationalization of domestic environments, create incentives and conditions for mobility, which often are not in place. And we need to coordinate policy responses. 3 points I'll just illustrate a bit more. We have already addressed a few times that the push and pull dynamics, which are relevant for individual decision-making, they level on the institutional and economic niveau, but also on social and cultural levels. Yeah, institutional, we've been mentioning today repeatedly the career advancement prospects, salary and income levels, contracting terms and length, the issue of social security, access to labor markets, residency permits, the transferability of academic degrees, the research and training infrastructure, and pro-immigration policies. but also the social and cultural level matters. The transparency of recruiting, the reliability of services, the corruption or non-corruption and discrimination, good governance, research and training infrastructure, learning spirit, work ethics and atmosphere, societal openness and cultural diversity. And last but not least, the educational infrastructure for children. This is a key matter why young families tend to move. And all these issues I'm raising here, I found in my research on emigration and also mainly high-skilled emigration in Croatia and Eastern European countries. Individual agency is a key factor to be considered. So what are high-skilled migrants base their mobility decisions on? They compare transnationally the chances and risks. They assess the quality of life in different places, the unique selling points. So if Rimac Automobili comes out with such a sales promotion of Croatia as a good place to live, this is something that's taken into consideration by people who look into the automobile industry. Then the issue of building up resilience against risk is also driving mobility decisions. Then I also think we must not discuss only the perspectives of career advancements on the one hand in academia or the homo economicus, so that we only focus on wages and salaries. No, it's a much more complex picture we need to take into account. Something very crucial that also Alida Vracic was mentioning this morning. Those who leave are often being blamed for being mobile, and this kind of discourse does not actually disencourage young people to leave, but rather alienate from their domestic home environment, which I think backfires if we want to fight brain drain. Locally, the high-skilled young people need to be recognized as potential agents of change and bridge builders, which also has not yet come into mainstream public discourse. Here I'm just taking a brief look at the campaign that Rimac Automobili is having on YouTube at the moment. So you can see here prices and standards of living, for example, somebody speaks about, then about Croatian women and their attractiveness, so safety, the Christmas market in Zagreb, traveling, and so on and so forth. So it's a whole picture that makes Rimac and Croatia an attractive place for high-skilled young labor force. Is leaving easier than returning? I think that is a very crucial issue to be looked into. We often find that there are obstacles mentioned for return, some of which might be crucial, others can be removed. But we need to understand why people return and what they experience when returning. Also, our colleague from Banja Luka was pointing this out, and I thought it was very interesting. Is there a welcome culture, not only in attitudes, but also structurally to welcome people back? We have closed local networks, a lack of social capital, which is felt by returning migrants if they want to apply for a job and lack the social connections. There are intransparent recruitment mechanisms. Young high-skilled people who want to contribute to change and to have an impact on development are not often encouraged to do so, but rather disencouraged. So we have social dynamics between local employers, for example, and those who come from outside, which are rather impeding impact and change agency than encouraging. And that is a factor also to be considered. What are the reasons for low political trust and engagement? This is something to be looked into and which has often been analyzed, especially in studies amongst people who are abroad, who name corruption and their low political trust in governance as a key reasons for not returning. But this is much more deeply to be looked into. And if we take the Eastern European region as such, it's a region which very low political education, which is crucial for also low political trust and engagement. So the roots for lower political trusts are within the educational systems to be found and also to be tackled. Also was mentioned the emotional attachment, which is crucial, but still not understood properly as resource for return and for remitting, not only financially, but socially remitting, meaning through knowledge transfer, connections, and so on and so forth. Return experiences are mostly unreported. Everybody focuses on the reasons to leave, but very few address those reasons to return. So something should be invested here into making people heard who have returned and have good reason to have done so and share their experiences. Also, the best practice policy programs and initiatives which are out there to encourage return and circulation should be much more widely shared. Enhancing internationalization, I think, is paramount in order to make the environment absorb people to return, who return, but also newcomers. So we need to also encourage immigration. There is the need for removing legal and institutional barriers to mobility and to reintegration. There is information on legal regulations to be provided. We need to ensure transparency of legal pathways. We need to extend the offer of university programs in English language and support alumni networking, capacity building for international mobility. And last but not least, we need to incentivize transnational mobility for career advancement, which is not yet systematically in place. I would like to close with a few recommendations how policies should respond to brain drain. I think we absolutely need to have coordinated responses across sectors and stakeholder groups and also cross borders. It needs to become a transnational effort with respect to brain circulation, which I think is yet to be facilitated. It takes place, but it should be spurred much more. We need to address the skills mismatch and the gap between education and industry or employment, which is endemic, especially in the Danube region. So dual structures, the dual educational system, practice-based learning, there is a lot of place for development. We should support civil society initiatives which are out there for practice-based learning to tackle sources of high youth unemployment and the brain drain. Policy and politics does not enough recognize the engagement of civil society in that respective fields, which often start at a much earlier stage when in middle school, when young people start to actually think which educational and career path they would like to take. And this is the moment to actually hit in and connect them to industry, to local industry, where they find perspective for their future. I said it already, need to incentivize, assist and subsidize return. There are best practices in place which can give a lot of encouragement and ideas. We need to gear immigration policies towards high-skilled. We need to support employers to keep contact and easily resettle the mobile workforce they have. We need to address migration skepticism, which is out there and is a political challenge, both as a sending and also as a receiving society. And last but not least, to promote the value of mobility for welfare and development, I think is crucial. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hornstein Tomić, for your really rich overview, interesting examples from Croatia. I will for sure check the Rimac example out, and also really great that you had this overview of, you know, what would be the most urgent policy initiatives to address brain drain. Is the audio quality okay out there? Finally, Kaoline, could you? Okay, now it sounds better. So finally, we have Mr. Bernhard Gutternigg as our last speaker, who is General Manager at euroTalc, SRO. And Mr. Gutternigg will give some concrete examples on how his company euroTalc is addressing brain drain. And we are very eager to hear you, Mr. Gutternigg. Please.
Thank you, and good evening. First of all, you have seen our company name is euroTalc, and also if you have seen in the presentation of IMA Europe, there's also a division called euroTalc. It's not the same. This is a division of euroTalc of IMA, and we are not part of IMA yet. Okay, I want to share now my presentation. Can you see it? Is it okay? Okay, perfect. I'll start it. Yeah, euroTalc is a company in Slovakia. I'm Austrian, but I work spent nearly 70 to 80% of my time in Slovakia. And we have an underground mine and also a processing a flotation. We have, I would say, one of the hugest white talc deposits in Europe. And normally in Europe, 80–90% of white talc is imported from Asia. And due to that, the COVID crisis is for us not so bad, because a lot of suppliers or a lot of buyers in Europe saw now that it's difficult to source talc from India, Pakistan, or China during these COVID times, and there were delays and there were a lot of problems. And also we implement underground and also on the surface a lot of new processing steps, and also we have in the flotation a unique closed water circuit, and also all material circuits are completely closed. It's not allowed in our area to make a tailing pond or to make used waste dumps. That's not possible. And I joined euroTalc more or less 4 years ago, and at the beginning I thought, okay, it's quite easy, in some years it will run, and that's it. But finally, when we started with with the mine and with the flotation, we saw that we are not an ordinary company. We are more or less a research and development laboratory. And this is now a case since 3–4 years. But it's also a good challenge, and it's an interesting challenge. But to do that, we need also really good employees, but not just on the manager level, also on the blue-collar worker level, we would need good employees. And it's quite difficult to find really good people. And that's the reason why, for me, immigration is independent from the education. We have the problem on blue-collar level, also like on white-collar level. And also there are some other people from Austria working with me in Slovakia. Also our process engineer is from Austria, because we were not able to find a process engineer in Slovakia. When we go to the next slide, you see our operation. Everything is quite new. And also in the area of the crushing and screening area, at the moment we have a huge investment ongoing. You cannot see it on the picture, with optical sorting, near infrared optical sorting, because during starting of the mining, we found out that it's not possible to extract a talc ore with 60% of talc, and due to that we have to enrich it, because it's important to have the waste under control, because if we have less talc content, then we are not able to use the whole waste in the mine. Okay. You see here, and also the Elizabeth gallery, what you can see here, this is the connection to the underground mine. It's a gallery with 4.3 kilometers. That means also from the logistical side, we are developing, for example, the wagons and so on for the tailings transport. We develop everything by ourselves because there's nothing available on the market, nothing appropriate available on the market. You can see on the right side, you see more or less the talc deposit. It's a deposit of carbonates and talc, but also with chloride, with quartz, with pyrite. It's really a complicated deposit. I know a lot of talc deposits worldwide, but this is really the most complicated deposit worldwide. And on the left side, you see a cut through level 480, and at the moment we started working on 3 levels. Now some words related to Slovakia. You see here, if you look to Slovakia, you have to divide them in the western part and eastern part. We are in the eastern part on the right side, close to Košice, 60 kilometers away from Košice. And you see here, even in Slovakia, there's a huge gap in salary. That means if you look to the Košice area, at the moment it's approximately 1,000 euro, and in the region of Bratislava, it's approximately 1,400 euro. The main reason is that the automotive industry is close to Bratislava and Žilina. That means also inside of Slovakia, we have a lot of immigration. Everybody who has some flexibility from the blue-collar workers go to the western part of Slovakia. And this is really a big problem for us, and that's the reason why our wages inside our company, I made a comparison where I compared the wages, the average wages in our company from 2014 to 2020 now, and we increased during this time the wages by 137%. So this is quite a lot. And what are the reasons for the people to move out of Eastern Slovakia? Is for sure if they go to the managers, if they go to the western parts, we have the problem with tunneling industry, because in tunneling they earn 3-4 times more money. And also at the moment, due to the high gold price, because we have also one gold mine in the western part of Slovakia, this is one of the reasons why a lot of people go from the eastern part to the western part, because gold mining is at the moment really a good business. And also the automotive industry, which is also in the western part. And the people, or for the managers, more or less, you have to give them some incentives. And when I came to Slovakia, I recognized that we are a company who has a lot of company cars. Because even our bookkeeping lady has a company car, and all managers more or less has company cars, because without the company car, nobody will work for us in such a rural area, because the car gives them, I would say, a certain flexibility. And most of our managers coming from Košice, this is 1 hour away. It means every day driving 1 hour to work, and also 1 hour back. And also we have really good working conditions in the meantime. And also the question is, what do students miss when they're working abroad? For sure, they will miss their family, their friends, and so on. And also what we saw, what is on the one side positive, a lot of managers who went in the past to Germany, they are coming back with 40, 45 years. So this is a good possibility for us to employ such people who are coming back from abroad. Let's move to the next one. Yeah, we have to find, I would say, a good motivation. That means working condition and also higher salary. But even if you have a higher salary, you never can compete with tunneling. And we saw this even now in this COVID crisis, also on the blue-collar workers. People come back from Germany, from tunneling to Slovakia. We employ them. and they did the same work as our people in the mine, more or less. And after 3 months, when I would say the western part opened again, more or less, then they quitted their job after 2-3 months and went back to Germany, because he's doing the same, but you cannot pay him 3 times more. That's not possible. And what is very important for us, and here we have now a good relationship to the local universities. This is very important for us, and we work very close together with the university in Košice. Also, we in an EAD project where we have Mischkolz and also a Krakow. And now we have some master theses also in for the mine and for the flotation. So this is important for us to get really early in contact with the students so that they can see what we are doing, what is our approach, because we have really, I would say, a Western approach and not an Eastern approach. And we are for sure, I would say, the most modern mine in Slovakia, and I would say also in Europe. We are very modern. And also, I think it's necessary to improve the education on the universities, to have a closer contact with the companies, to see also what are the needs of the companies, because it's important also for the university to get the feedback. So, and what we did now, we founded up also a new startup, a new company, where we do, I would say, consulting for Slovakia and also probably for other countries, and also a training center for companies and for students. And also we're starting it now, this joint venture, and also people from the university and from our company has the possibility to take a share of the company. Because when we have a company together with them also, I think that's a good possibility, to have an additional motivation. And last but not least, what we saw also is that we would need for the future, but this is really a future item, a good cooperation with secondary schools to convince people to study mining, because from the mining university in Košice, we don't get enough students. Because in the last years, everybody was against mining, and so not a lot of people started mining. And this is also a big problem that we have. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gutternigg. Could I just ask one quick question regarding this new company that you talk about? Is it like a staffing company or a consultancy? In what way? Please elaborate.
No, it's a startup. It's a startup, and we want to do consulting. That means we want to educate people more or less to do consulting, not just for euroTalc, also for other companies. And also what we want to establish a training center in cooperation with the university in Košice, because at the moment, if you're looking for, I would say, a training just for stupid things like hydraulics and welding trainings and so on, you will not find a company who is doing this in eastern part of Slovakia. You can send the people to Austria, but that is not working because they speak just Slovak.
All right, so it's skills enhancements and on training kind of thing.
Yeah, that's important for us. We saw this during the last years, and this is really important to do this.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gutternigg. It's really nice to finish off with a concrete from the field experience on how you are really tackling the challenge of access to skills and talent and skills retention. Can I ask Leoben, how are we for time? Because I see that it.
Hello. We are actually 5 minutes over time after the break already with our delay we caused this lunch time. So I would ask you now to wrap up the session so we can start the workshops at 5:30. So maybe a last round of statements and comments.
Very good. Okay. I ask please all panelists to unmute yourself. And do we have Aurela with us?
Aurela Shtiza, are you here? Can you hear us? I hear something, there might be a connection problem. Maybe we begin with Pontus and see if the situation improves.
I wanted to ask actually to pick up a little bit on slides that you showed Dr. Hornstein Tomić at the end on the on the need for policy coordination and the listing of different policy initiatives that you thought were the most burning ones. And I wanted to ask the other panelists what amongst these initiatives that you would find the most important. It's a pity that we don't have Aurela with us, but could I ask?
Maria, can you hear me?
Yes, yes. Aurela.
I have a voice.
This is like, okay, very good. Yes, did you hear my question, Aurela?
Can you just say it once more? Because
yes. So I want to pick up on the last slide that was showed by Dr. Hornstein Tomić on that coordinated policies should be, for example, they should incentivize and assist return. They should support employers to keep contact and easily resettle mobile workforce. I wanted to ask you which amongst these ideas, proposal you would find the most relevant ones. Perhaps could you please, Dr. Hornstein Tomić, could you please show that slide? Exactly, that one. Thank you, thank you. So could I please ask Aurela and Herr Gutternigg and Ms. Westin, what do you think would be a priority action in this proposal?
Maria, if I can just start. The second bullet point for me, it is extremely important to actually address the skill mismatch and the gap between education, industry, as well as employment. And the reason why I think this is extremely important is, as also Dr. Gutternigg was mentioning, they have created these new structures to help create these linkages. And our companies, they face exactly the same difficulties in very remote areas where the mine is. It is very difficult to motivate experts or to motivate students to study engineering and to be able to be located in these very remote areas. Something which is very specific for the mineral sector, as you saw, we have a lot of quarries all around Europe. And we strongly depend where they are. So you cannot actually move the quarry somewhere else. You have to be where the quarry is. And our companies, they have, in the mineral sector, we do not have the luxury of the metal sector where you have the fly in and fly out of the experts. So we need to have the expertise on site. And because of the difficulty of having this expertise on site, our companies, they have actually created this connection with high school students and university curricula in order to address the future needs of our companies, in order to employ these students and to have them as future employees in the company. So for me, addressing this skill mismatch and to motivate people to move in remote areas in their own country is something that our companies, they are working. And at European level, as I mentioned in the project size, for example, the to go beyond cross-sectorial connection.
Anything to add?
Yeah, no, it is like, as she said, the problem is that we cannot move our deposits to home office. To say it in a COVID language, more or less. The problem is that we have to go where the deposit is, and most of the deposits are in rural areas, and that's the reason why it's difficult to get people to these areas. And it's also not possible, as she said, to fly in or fly out like it is partly in Australia, where people go in for some weeks and then go back. We have to have the people in close to our mines. And this is important. And also, I think very important is the close contact to the universities, and to have the really good connection and to build up a network. And this is really important, because we need the students really urgent. And also we want to support more or less the universities. That's important. Also, it's not just for master thesis. The students can also work before in summertime in our company and so on. This is really important. Yeah.
Westin, any views from your side?
Yes, thank you. Yes, thank you. I really like the presentation from Dr. Hornstein Tomić, and the emphasis on the positive view of mobility, and in particular the last point in this slide is one I really see is important to promote the value of mobility for welfare and development. I mean, really make the view that mobility is good. Moving back and forth internationally is very good to gain new knowledge from other countries, and then making the returning process easy, and perhaps, as you write, to incentivize and assist and subsidize the return would be really good. And for example, not to talk too much about money. Money is not the happiness. Like making the salaries larger wouldn't really always mean that more people would return, but rather focusing on stuff like Bernhard talked about, such as good working conditions, modern operations, socially sustainable workplaces. I think that's a really important thing, and that people should be happy working for you, not trying to wave a lot of money in front of you. That's not the key here. I think it's more about the socially sustainable way to deal with this issue.
Thank you very much. Also from the geological survey in Sweden, and from your the activities have been running. Hornstein Tomić, you see, seems to have landed well amongst the practitioners in this context. That you would like to add? I think perhaps not the case. And for the team in Leoben, I think that with questions from the audience.
Sorry, I first had to stop sharing, and just let me say one thing. I feel there's so much resonance in what we discussed here, and especially what Mr. Gutternigg also said. We need to look already in high school levels and promote actually the industry which is out there, and career paths into this industry. So reaching out to the educational sector from the side of the industry is crucial, and this is what I meant by cross-sector. Of course, even more so on university level, but we should start already earlier. And we have an initiative here in Croatia, which we actually boosted this year with 440 schools in the country. It's called Karrieroteka, and it's run by a foundation, Wissen am Werk, which brings school kids together with, for example, the number 2 in Rimac Automobili to discuss his work in the industry, and so to get to know workplaces. Such initiatives are crucial. Pontus, I couldn't agree more. We need to promote the value of mobility, and in our societies be aware that this is not a shared attitude and concern, but there is rather a huge skepticism of mobility and also a promotion of rather closure and homogeneity. Therefore, it's really a political challenge. Thank you very much all for sharing your experiences. It's very inspiring to see, and I'm looking forward to continue our discussion in other contexts. Thank you also, moderator.
Thank you very much. And with this, I think with that we would hand over to the team in Leoben. Questions from the audience hard to manage in this setup, but there will be more events in the future, I hope. And I also would just like to finish off with saying that I'm quite sure that at Materials Week of next year in 2020, the aspects that concerns access to talent, access to skills, and knowledge retention and brain drain, those are for sure themes that we will be covering within that.
You were cut off at the last sentence, but I think I.
That I would hand over to the.
Thank you very much. There was a little bit of a communication issue at the last sentence, but I think I got the gist of it. Of course, we want to continue this dialogue that we start here, and I'm already looking forward to delve into much more discussion.